Welcome back,
Welcome back.
Ole Miss, to another episode of the Rebel Talk. I'm your host, Zach Moreth, and I'm back with Daylan Flowers. And we're going to get right into it with you guys. We're going to discuss last night's win over Florida, discuss if that was enough to get Ole Miss, the first host, I believe, in a very long time in Oxford to get postseason back where it belongs, and then kind of give you guys a preview of what's in store for Arkansas and how Ole Miss can potentially beat the number 2 SEC seed. But before we get into it, it's been a minute, Daylan. How was the end of your semester? How you doing now? What's new, man?
Pretty good, man. Those finals weeks were kind of like the most stressful weeks for a college student, but I got through it. Everything went pretty good, man. Back home now for a little bit, just figured some things out, but I can't complain, man. Everything's still going pretty good on my end.
That's what I want to hear, man. And again, I'm back home too for a little bit before, hopefully we get to cover some postseason here. But I think Ole Miss did the right steps to potentially get that regional host spot by beating Florida last night. It was a 3-1 win. Hunter Elliott goes 5.1 innings, no earned runs, 8 strikeouts. He just looks dominant out there. In the velo, it's not like it's standing out, topping out at 96, 97, 98, but it's consistent 90, 91, 92 in the changeup slider combination is disgusting. I really can't imagine going against a guy with such an elite 4-pitch mix. So just your thoughts on Hunter and the offense too. They did just enough to get a win, and it was a quality win with all the stakes and a lot of pressure on this team going against a Florida program who had won 6 of their last SEC series to finish off the season. So just your overall thoughts and how big this win was for Ole Miss.
It was huge, man. I have to give all the credit to the players and the staff. When Hunter Elliott came back this year, I didn't know what to expect. Honestly, obviously, I know Hunter's the ace for this team. Great arm, great pitching arsenal, great control over his pitches. But when you come back from 2 years being gone just off injury and you come back in, a lot of stakes are around this year's team because this year was the year that you acquire that pitching coach that I think fans knew was needed for so long. This is the year that Ole Miss fans were looking for a big rebound year after coming off 2 struggling years. And Elliott has really, come in and just felt really comfortable, and he's looked really comfortable all year. And I was proud of the job he did against Florida. It was a game that Ole Miss desperately needed to win in terms of being able to host a regional for the NCAA tournament, and they were able to do that. It wasn't the most prettiest way that I wanted it to do, but I'm proud of the guys for still getting it done. One of the things that has haunted this Ole Miss team this year and in the previous years is just fielding errors, and it's something that obviously needs to get cleaned up moving forward. But I'm proud of this team for not allowing those mental mistakes to lose the game. They could have easily given this game to Florida, who, like Zach just mentioned, is on the tear right now. They finished the regular season really strong, winning 3 straight series and able to put themselves in a good position. Had they had won last night against Ole Miss to probably host a regional for the NCAA tournament themselves. So Ole Miss put themselves in a great position winning that game against Florida to host a regional, which was the goal, I think, for this team before the season started. Talking to players and hearing the impact and feedback from fans, that was the goal, was to get winning baseball back to Oxford. And they were able to do that in a fashion that I'm okay with. But moving forward, things definitely have to get better. But Ole Miss won the game, and that's what mattered most. And they were able to take one against Florida that puts them in now a position, I don't want to say regardless, but barring what happens against Arkansas, hopefully a chance to host a regional in the NCAA tournament.
You're spot on. And look, if they beat Arkansas, I think there's no question that it's obviously wrapped up at that point. I think that would move them up in the RPI at least 2 to 3 spots.
Yeah.
But from talking to people around the program, it seems like Southern Miss might be that other team who's fighting for the last spot. And again, for those who don't know, Southern Miss, they're a good program, fighting over there in the Sun Belt Conference. They're currently playing their second round game against Old Dominion. They finished the season 42-13. And look, talking to these guys around the program, seems like they're okay going back to Hattiesburg after what happened in 2022. You go play the Super there, you win a national championship. Yeah. It works out. And as we know, Ole Miss fans are going to travel, and it would probably feel like a home environment there. But with that being said, man, there's nothing better than running it back at Swayze. For guys like Hunter, it might be his last time there, pending that he doesn't return next year. Guys like Luke Hill, kind of the similar situation. But look, it's all going to come down to the committee. It seems like Ole Miss has done everything they can at this point. The very last weekend, they notched out a series against Auburn, who was they've proven again to be a really good team. a good program with great coaches. You win series against Vanderbilt. There's all these different things, and the amount of quad one wins, I do believe they've done enough. But look, you beat Arkansas. There's no question. There's zero doubt about it. Looking into this matchup, Dalen, you're an Arkansas guy. Kind of grew up an Arkansas fan, and it seems like every game, like we're always going against Arkansas in postseason stuff. Softball's got them too, but it's going to be Riley Maddox, the starting pitcher for Ole Miss, against Zach Root, the starting pitcher for Arkansas. Two guys who have ERAs above 4, and in my eyes, this is going to be which offense is going to score more runs, Dalen. I kind of see an 8-6, maybe 9-7 result game. That could go either way, but I just want to preview Zach Root a little bit. He pitched that Friday night against Ole Miss, and Ole Miss shelled him. He allowed 7 earned runs in 3 innings pitched, and in his last outing against Tennessee about a week ago, he gave up 4 earned runs in 3.2 innings pitched. So while he does show a lot of, look, he's a Friday night guy for Arkansas. The kid can dominate when he wants to, but there are times when he gets rattled early on, and it seems like if you can get him out of the game and get to the bullpen, things start to go your way a little bit. Just your thoughts on Root and what he brings to the table, Dylan.
Yeah, Root has a great pitching arsenal, kind of like Hunter Elliott, but he's not been able to really control his pitches this year. And I also will say, watching a lot of Hog baseball, his infielders have not been able to support him as well as I think they have needed to in terms of looking at his ERA. So I wouldn't base too much off that for Root, but like Zach mentioned, it's a huge point for Ole Miss. They've already seen this guy this year, and they were able to dominate him and understand what he brings to the table, which is huge. And this is a game for Ole Miss that they're kind of looking for a little redemption. That Arkansas series ended up not going the way they wanted earlier in the season to start conference play. Some heartbreaking play at the end, especially ended up losing that series in the third game. But Zach Root is a guy that comes in, and like Zach said, I'm expecting this to be a little bit of a high maintenance game for both guys. Riley Maddox has not been, great by any means for Ole Miss either this year, but I think he's able to get, a couple innings in and get the job done. But this is going to be a game that limits just who wins the mental game. Arkansas, if you look back at that series against Ole Miss, which was the conference opener for both teams, they struggled in fielding as well during that series. They've picked up strongly since that series, but Arkansas struggled really a lot against Ole Miss in that opening series. A lot of pop-up flies that were dropped, infielding errors. So you'll see that team against Ole Miss try to just play smart and play comfortable as well to avoid any infielding errors, to avoid, situational plays that don't put them in, great position. I thought Ole Miss did a great job at a point where in those first couple of innings gave up an error and put Florida players in scoring positions, but the situational awareness from Will Furnace allowed them to get one of those outs back in the inning. So I think Root's going to come in and give Arkansas something that they need. And, it's funny because technically, if you're looking at this, Arkansas has the upper advantage in terms of pitching. Ole Miss now, has played a game, has used up some of their rotation. Arkansas has not played in the tournament yet. So they're going to be a little bit more healthy, have a little bit more leeway with in terms of guys that they can use. So that's going to favor Arkansas. But in terms of the starting pitching matchup, I'm going in terms of who I've seen, fair one another. Riley Maddox has the edge, but it's going to come down to as well, Zach, how fast does Ole Miss start? Those first 2 innings for Ole Miss are going to be huge. They're going to set the momentum for the game, and they're going to be able to dictate whether or not the confidence for Zach Root builds up strong or it kind of diminishes really early. And I think that's going to be huge. Like I say, Arkansas has the rotation available for them because they have not played yet in postseason yet, but building that confidence early is going to be huge for Ole Miss. I think they want to get out to the best start possible on both ends on defense and batting. So that hot start is going to be huge for Ole Miss.
And we've seen it, both versions of that Ole Miss team. You kind of got a combination where they had a couple good innings last night, but early in the game, I'm on my couch almost ready to take a nap, Dalen. Like, dude, the offenses are dead. We saw that version against Mississippi State when not their best starting pitcher goes up and throws 15-plus strikeouts in a game. It really just depends, what version of the Rebels are going to come to the field that day. And tomorrow, hopefully, we get a version who's hungry and ready to go against a pitcher who they've really already dominated against. And then offensively for Arkansas, it's really just talent. That's the only word I can really think of. They got 8 starting hitters who are hitting over 300, and 7 of them have 10 or more home runs. That's pretty difficult to do. with all due respect, back on the Ole Miss side of things, this is the second time in program history that the team hits 100 or more home runs. So at any given moment, these guys, they can put up 2 or 3 runs on the board or even a solo shot late in the game. But the big question for me is, can a guy like Austin Foley, who has that ability to change the game in the blink of an eye with his home run power, finally start to make some noise again? Because he's really been struggling here down the stretch. And defensively, he's looked solid. He almost picked a guy off there at second base last night. But what version of him comes to the plate? And then can Judd Utermark, can he continue to just tear it up? I honestly think Judd's going to hit a homer tomorrow. That's kind of my prediction. But Foley seems like a make or break guy in the middle to the bottom half of the lineup who can change an entire outcome of the game. So I'm hopefully, he's kind of taking a step back, relaxed, and understood that, hey, I'm good. We can win games when I'm not on, and take that pressure off him, Daylan, because he's a guy, he can change, like I just said, man, he can change the entire outcome. He can propel a run here, maybe encourage some guys at the bottom of the lineup, but hopefully he can turn it on against, an offense in Arkansas who's probably going to be scoring a lot of runs tomorrow.
Yeah. You make a good point, man. Austin is reliable for this team in a lot of different ways. I've watched him when he's doing well and hitting homers and playing well behind the plate, be a very energetic piece for this Ole Miss baseball team that sometimes is kind of lacking. But then when he's going through those struggling marks like he is right now, you kind of see the lights kind of get bright on his head. But as I mentioned earlier, I thought the first 2 innings for this game were going to be huge for Ole Miss against Arkansas, because you want to be able to work root and not just have a 1, 2, 3 first and second inning. You want to get that pitch count elevated a little bit. You want to have them see some situational, plays, maybe get some runners in scoring position in those first couple of innings to put a little bit of the pressure on Zach Root and kind of make him think outside of just focusing on the batter at hand. I think Foley Rayleigh just needs to kind of stay calm and stay focused on what's inside his area. I've watched him over the last 2 weeks kind of just swing for the fences a lot, and which is okay sometimes, but also when you're in the position that you are, sometimes just getting on base is important, but as well as going to be able to build your confidence to start, swinging for the fence a little bit more. And I think he's going to be needed on both ends. As I mentioned, the fielding errors earlier, Foley does a great job at dictating where runners are going to go, if they're going to steal or not, where to throw to, et cetera, et cetera. His leadership is going to be needed against Arkansas. Like I said, like Zach said, this is an Arkansas team that has the SEC Player of the Year, that has continued to see light in terms of their offense, has multiple batters over 300, have continued to swing, which has been a Day of Van Horn recipe for his success over the last 2 decades. But where does Ole Miss take advantage is those first couple innings. How can they start out strong and build the confidence that's willing to beat this Arkansas team? Because it's not impossible. This is an Ole Miss team. They won the first game of that series against Arkansas early in the season. Should have won the series. In the third game, they end up giving a 2-run drive in the top of the ninth, and then a 3-run bomb in the ninth as well. End up losing that game in heartbreaking fashion. So this is an Ole Miss team that can compete with Arkansas, and that says a lot. This is an Arkansas team that has aspirations of winning the national championship this year. They have the quality to do so when it's all put together. And Ole Miss, in my opinion, does the exact same way. When it's all put together, Ole Miss can compete with any of the best teams in the conference. But will they? And that'll be the question. It can't be a replica of what we saw against Florida. And I don't think it will be, but it really cannot be for Ole Miss if they want to have a chance to survive against Arkansas.
Real quick before, we wrap up here, I want to dive in. First, shouting out Campbell Smithwick for getting that big RBI and kind of causing some chaos. There was an error, whole lot going on, but put the ball in play, good things are going to happen rather than a strikeout. So shout out to Soup. He's had a very inconsistent year. Hopefully he stays in the lineup. He's good lefty bat, and if he stays hot, again, another bat at the bottom of the order who can, start to turn things up when that lineup rolls over to the top. But in the bullpen, Mason Morris was phenomenal last night. I was questioning Mike's decision when they pulled him and put Connor Spencer in, but look how that worked out. So good job by Mike handling that situation too. We give the guy a lot of criticism, so I want to give him credit as well when he makes a good decision. I don't know if pulling Morris in the ninth did enough to make him available on Friday. And at the same time, you would like to see some other guys step up here, like Will McCausland, probably Walker Hooks is going to get an appearance at some point. He seems to be that lefty guy you continue to call on, or even Ryan Rodriguez. But there has to be guys who feel the pressure of postseason baseball, other than Mason Morris, who's proven all year long that he's probably going to be pretty effective when he goes in the game.
That's a great point. I'm super happy you brought that up because, like you said, I don't know if he's now going to be available against Arkansas if needed, and that's a great point because Mason has been huge for Ole Miss all year, and he was great against Florida. But I don't know how you're able to adapt and move forward if you don't give other guys, like you just mentioned, an opportunity in moments like this. And it's a scary point because you give guys with that raw experience, and then they come in, they crumble, and you end up losing those games that are needed to win. You look back on it, and you think maybe I should have made a different decision.
Yeah.
But hopefully, you take those opportunities and they benefit you in the future. So the pitching rotation right now, which is why I said Arkansas kind of has that benefit of not playing so far and being able to rest their rotation up a little bit. It's a weird point for Ole Miss. The bullpen is something that I thought has progressively grown and gotten better as the season has went on, and it was something I was proud of as well because that's obviously been the key piece for this struggling teams over the last few years, and just having a particular guy. And a lot of those guys in the bullpen kind of be like one another and do the same thing, have the same arsenal, a lot of lefties. They've been able to be a little bit diversified this year and do better things, but are they able to put it together in the postseason? Postseason baseball is so different. There's so much at stake. It's win or go home, and that confidence is huge, but that pressure is also noticeable when you're in those positions, when you're in those moments, when you come into the game and there's a runner on second and third, but there's only one out. So that's going to be huge for Ole Miss, and whether or not Bianco is able to give those guys opportunities is going to be huge. You mentioned it as well about bringing Morris in. It was a point where I had to look at Bianco. I'm like, okay, you know more about baseball than I do, so I'm going to trust your feeling and your gut moment in this. But it was definitely in in that moment kind of questionable in my gut. Like, is this the right move? Should we be doing this? It worked out for us, but it doesn't always. But you kind of just have to have faith in Bianco and this coaching staff, which I've had a lot of this year. This is a year that this
I agree.
Staff has grown my faith a lot. I thought it was I didn't know what to expect when the season starts, what I'll say. And this year has definitely been fun. It's exceeded my expectations. So I have faith in what's going to be done against Arkansas. But I would definitely be open to see younger guys be able to get that opportunity that may not have been able to in other games as well.
Absolutely. And a whole lot of question marks, a lot of analyzation from us. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that segment that we broke down for baseball. That game is going to be played tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central on SEC Network, and the winner of that game will either play LSU or Texas A&M. So a very, very big one for Ole Miss. Riley Maddox versus Zach Root. Be sure to tune in. And then apparently earlier, the game time just got moved here, but Ole Miss softball also plays Arkansas. The game was originally scheduled for 7 p.m., got moved to 11 a.m., according to Daylan, who literally told me this like 2 minutes before we started recording. But that game will be streamed on ESPNU. In all honesty, Daylan, you've been a guy you've been announcing softball games. This guy's doing everything. Check out the Daylan Show on YouTube as well if you have the chance. But just kind of give us some insight and what to watch out for those who are looking to tune into that matchup before baseball starts tomorrow.
Yeah, man. This softball team has been on a roll. And this is a Ole Miss softball team that, just like the baseball team, started SEC play against Arkansas. They were able to win that series, winning 2 games. Lost the third game in unfortunate fashion. Arkansas put about 20 runs against Ole Miss in that third game. But I don't want to take too much despair from it. Arkansas has a loaded roster. Brie Ellis, SEC Player of the Year, is probably going to landslide a lot of the national awards too. Gordon Deifel's done a fantastic job up there in Fayetteville. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a game kind of like the baseball team as well. It relies on the ladies staying calm and staying confident in their game. Fayetteville's been a great host over the last couple of years in terms of regionals and super regionals. It's going to be a loud atmosphere, and it's going to be a raucous crowd. So I expect Miley Wachenio to be on the circle for Ole Miss to start tomorrow. She's a freshman, and she's come in and she's dominated this year. But like talking about Morris and some of the other guys in the bullpen for the baseball team, that environment may be a little difficult for a freshman.
Sure.
I'm excited to see what she's able to put up early and ways that she can just take the team to another level. Jamie Trashel has put a lot of trust in her this year, and I'm excited. These both teams are able to put bat to ball and put some runs on the board. Both of the games that Ole Miss won, they took care of business batting really well. Some fielding problems, but I'm not too concerned about that. They picked up their fielding really well throughout the season, and Lexi Brady has kind of been the forceful run for this Ole Miss softball team. Just broke the single season home run record for Ole Miss a few weeks ago, so she's kind of the leader of this team in terms of batting. But you look at Ashley Benford and Jaden Pone and a lot of other girls that have also picked up tremendously for this softball team are going to be huge against the Arkansas team that has a lot of star power, and Ole Miss is capable of doing. They've already done it, but being in Fayetteville is going to be a different story. It's going to be a little bit more of a trial and tribulation run for Ole Miss, but it should be a fun game. The 11 a.m. change, in my opinion, benefits Ole Miss a little bit more. I think that early game kind of is now not going to allow that Arkansas crowd to be maybe as more energetic or kind of full in capacity that they wanted to be with the other time change. So I think the 11 a.m. change is going to be very beneficial for Ole Miss, but the keys are in their hands. They are also looking to hopefully host a regional as well. It's going to take a lot. Not a regional, excuse me. They are also looking to move forward to the NCAA tournament. It's going to take a lot to beat Arkansas, but Ole Miss softball is definitely capable of doing it. They've been on the tear all season long.
Hogs Rebels on both sides of the diamonds tomorrow, folks. Ole Miss softball taking on Arkansas in Fayetteville at 11 a.m. on ESPNU. And then you got the Diamond Rebs and Mike Bianco going against Van Horn and a very good Arkansas team on the baseball side of things at 3 p.m. on SEC Network. Is that all you got for me, Dylan?
Yeah, man. Like I said, I think both of these games are going to be exciting, but this Arkansas Ole Miss on both sides has kind of become like the rivalry for both teams, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like I think that Ole Miss fans look forward to seeing Arkansas in every sport every year, and it's vice versa for Ole Miss now. So this is fun for me in a lot of different ways, but it should be both fun and exciting games for both teams tomorrow.
And look at this. We got the guy who's been cheering for Arkansas growing up and went to school at Ole Miss, man. How lucky are we? He's Daylan Flowers. I'm Zach Moreth. Be sure to tune in to the rebelwalk.com for all your Ole Miss sports needs. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and thank you for listening. Hi to Toddy.
Hi to Toddy, y'all.